Hey children, today we are going to learn about active and passive voice. And in this video, we are going to cover what are active and passive sentences, how to identify active and passive voice, examples of active and passive sentences, rules to follow while converting active voice to passive voice, rules to convert active sentences to passive sentences for different tenses, and also the benefits of using active sentences and why it is often used while speaking or writing. Now, in English language, sentences can be written either in a direct form or indirect form. Direct form of sentences are called as active voice sentence, and indirect form is called as passive voice sentence. Let's see what are active and passive sentences in detail. In active voice, a sentence is written when the subject of the sentence is performing the action. It is a direct form of sentence. An example is, Andrew threw the ball. In this sentence, the subject is Andrew, and he is performing an action of throwing. Another example is, the audience cheer the players. What is the subject here? Audience is a subject who is performing the action of cheering. Now let's look at what is meant by passive voice in detail. Passive voice is written when the subject is the recipient of the action performed. Here, the subject has the action performed by someone or something. Passive voice sentences are indirect form of sentences. Let's look at some examples. In active voice, we learned Andrew threw the ball. Passive voice, it becomes the ball was thrown by Andrew. Another example we learned in active voice was the audience cheer the players. The same sentence in passive voice becomes the players are cheered by the audience. Now, how to identify active and passive voice? There are some rules to identify active and passive voice. All you need to ask is who or what performed the action. If the answer to your who or what question is at the beginning of the sentence, then it is an active voice sentence. The same answer, if it is at the end of a sentence, then it becomes a passive voice sentence. Let's look at some more examples. Max is rowing the boat. Now, the only question you need to ask here is, who is rowing the boat? And the answer is Max. Max is rowing the boat. Max is the subject, and therefore it becomes an active voice sentence because Max, who is a subject, is at the starting of a sentence. Let's look at another example. The fruits are sold by the fruit seller. Who is selling the fruits? The fruit seller. Now, the subject is fruit seller, and fruit seller is at the end of the sentence. Therefore, this sentence becomes a passive voice sentence. Let's see some more examples of active voice sentence and passive voice sentences. In active voice, you write, the fairy moves the magic wand. Passive voice becomes, the magic wand is moved by the fairy. Active voice, you write, the boys giggled in the class. And passive voice becomes, in the class, the boys giggled. Another example of active voice, the passengers filled the train. In passive voice, it becomes, the train was filled by the passengers. In active voice, we write, they called off the meeting. Whereas in passive voice, it becomes, the meeting was called off by them. Now, there are some important rules to consider while converting active voice to passive voice. First one is always use by before the subject in a passive voice sentence. The third form of verb is used such as is, am, are, was, were, been, being, depending on the tenses used in passive voice. The third rule is the present, past, or future perfect continuous and future continuous tense sentences do not have a passive voice form. The pronoun will change from active pronoun to passive pronoun. For example, I changes to me and they changes to them. Some more rules for converting pronouns from active to passive pronoun. In active voice, you have I, which becomes me in passive voice. You becomes you in both active and passive voice. We becomes us, they become them, and it remains the same for both active and passive voice. I hope you have now learned what is meant by active and passive voice sentences and know how to construct active and passive voice sentences. Thank you.